So the presentation format for Unit 3 will be all the students present first. So it's gonna take like 35 minutes, and then we'll have rest of time for the feedback. So can all the students on Unit 3 come to the stages? So everyone come here to get ready to present. So let's give us a second. Okay. So everyone, Unit 3, the topic is AAVS, and so this studio is assistant teach by Hyun-Kut, and then the topic for this studio is about how much the influence we can get from the images or also architectural precedents. And so the agenda for student is the first we do image search through Google Images, and then we download a series of data to examine what's the spirits of Seoul and what is the students' own purpose of architectural precedent. And then we extract the concept from the data set to find inspirations from images, and later we transform this abstract concept into the physical building form as a concept model. So what you are looking at right now is a serious concept model produced by all the students, and then all have different concept, either related to the architectural precedent or the spirit of Seoul. So now the first presenter will be Johnny. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Johnny, and we're Unit 3, titled Apophenia, led by Jimmy and assisted by Dancho. Our unit explores machine vision sampling as a means to rethink how we use image information to compose our cities. And this is specifically in the context of Seoul. So we began our research by looking at our personal experience of Seoul, the city, its architecture, and the everyday objects. My personal experience with Seoul is the city is in this constant tussle between the contemporary forward-thinking high-rises and that of the old alleys of traditional Hanok villages and old homes repurposed as trendy cafes for art or ice Americano at every corner. Seoul is this delicate balance between the old versus the new, between day and night, from the traditional to the new, trendy fast fashion and the contemporary sprawling throughout the city. To conduct our research, we looked at compiling our data sets from keywords of our experiences in Seoul, image scraping scripts in PyCharm for machine vision sampling in TensorFlow. The results were then used as a tool to inform our conceptual massing model explorations, where style transferring and texture mapping generated interesting outcomes in a quick and iterative way. So when I think of Seoul and my experience, I search for keywords like soju, the Gwanjang food market, and the Seoul city nightlife. And for The architecture styles, I explored traditional Seoul architecture of the Gyeongbokgun Palace, Hanok Village architecture, and high-tech architecture buildings. And sort of to contrast this exercise, I also looked at juxtaposing this and looked at the architecture styles of James Sterling, Daniel Libeskind, and John Soane. I wanted to see what happens when you begin to mix different styles with the image styles of Seoul, and what happens when we take Soju or the traditional Hanok village and its materials and then replace it with a high-tech architectural style, and vice versa. On the screen here are some examples of some style transfer outcomes generated in Blender, where the original images are texture mapped onto the modeled outcomes, with the results on the right, which begin to blur the lines of architecture, image, and artwork. To further apply this, our unit brief looks at the old abandoned military base based in Iljuro, between Gwanjang Market and the DDP. Again, sort of a contrast of two different styles. A site for a library program, which will be further explored in the next couple of days. These are some of the generated early model massing outcomes or explorations from our exercise based on the keywords. And in a short period of time, we could generate various massing model styles. And so these were the sort of image search results. So texture mapping results of all my explorations. And the outcomes sort of sit between this idea of artwork, concept imagery to further refine our ideas. So in the workflow below, it shows a screen grab of our Blender window with the TensorFlow image plugin, image search plugin, where we modeled the outcome, and the model outcome was then fed back into the algorithm, which resulted in an interesting outcome from the original data input. So we can see that the machine vision believes that it closely resembles a soju bottle sticker as the first image at the bottom left, and the works of Daniel Libeskind and high-tech architecture. And so finally arriving at our generated outcome, where the next steps will look to apply components, sort of as a facade of sorts, and then the internal program to further refine the project. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Yujin-go of Unit3. There's a saying, there is no food in the province, but there's no nest in Seoul. There are many places to work in Seoul, but there are not enough places to rest. To solve this problem, open space is now being created, but providing open space to everyone means that nobody belongs to that space. So I thought that people in Seoul should be provided with a personal and intimate place to rest, and I don't think it has to be a home. So I got this data set with the following keywords: regionalism, ambiguity, harmonious, and so on. And based on this data set, I do image search of my maps and analyze them. The result of the process is these pictures. The following models are the result of the texture mapping and complete the additional work. The image at the bottom is a picture that reanalyzed my finished model. I chose the last of these three alternatives, and the result of developing this model is this. I try to divide the wasted open space into small pieces and save it as a small space so that that space can be actively utilized. I've imagined a city that everyone can enjoy, but also gives them their own space, creating a harmonious relationship between community and privacy. So I created a mesh that connects a community space with curved void and privacy space with straight void into a finely divided intimate private space. And this is the result of re-image search, and development according to analysis. And I will continue to develop efficient space composition and layout. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, I'm Yerin. My project title is The Stacking City. And before we talk about the project name, first I want to tell you my thinking about Seoul. Korea is a country with a higher economic size and population density compared to its land. Rapid economic development, which began in the 1970s, resulted a vertical extension of volume. High-rise buildings stacked with different programs are densely packed, composing an image of a single elevation. Further means of urban regeneration, the act of destructing and rebuilding has been repeated. Numerous cloned roads connect these dense volumes. Therefore, I got four keywords from my story: apartment air view and Korean alley, plastic surgery clinic or slum. So my concept is looking into stacking and verticality. I wanted to show the programs that were accumulated over time. I use Fujimoto's architecture as a motif. Units are recognized as programs and borrowed the form of stacking the volume over and over again. This is my art 1 and 2 and 3. When a building is placed within a given site, the surrounding row buildings and my building coexist through the row rise road. Thank you for listening.
When I thought about Seoul, there are some words come to mind. For me, I choose them as my keywords, as the characteristic of Seoul is different from other cities. First of all, the city Seoul has many high-rise apartment complex blocks, which seems like an apartment forest. Secondly and thirdly, Seoul still has the Korean historical buildings like Gyeongbuk Palace and Buddhist temple, which has our traditional architectural elements. Also, Han River is flowing in the middle of city, so it's iconic and beloved by many Seoul citizens as they love to spend time there. Lastly, Seoul has a lot of cafes compared to other cities. In my opinion, a word following could sum up all of these characteristics to represent this city. I collected 220 images in the dataset based on my keywords and used image sending program in the Blender. After texture mapping, I could do math study. These three models are results.
Hello, I'm Jung-eun. Let's start the presentation. My title and concept is Dynamic, Fast, and Network. The first page is a site photo search image. I found the site photos, envisioned the image of the future, and chose the concepts that would suit Seoul. The concepts that I chose are dynamic, fast, and network, because I thought Seoul is a dynamic space, a place that moves really fast, and a place where various people's networks occur. Before showing modeling how the original image changed its style as it was modeled. The picture below was made in the picture above. This is the first model. The two buildings exist at different angles, and I mixed them with a shape that stretches out like a rhizome, and I applied the material. This is the second model. I saw fast-moving laws and people working as if there were many networks happening. So I've completed this model by creating free lines and filling in the spaces that are created in their movements. Various colors of Korean food were applied. At the end, I finished it by creating a form that stretches out recklessly. Finally, this is the rendering of the first model that I like the most among these three models. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yesil. I will start the presentation of Seoul made by the past. First, I collected pictures that remind me of the image of Seoul, and I walked around the site located in Untitled and took pictures of objects or images that could remind me of Seoul. Through more than 1,000 photos like this, we analyzed the factors that can remind us of Seoul. I took the topic of the street stall, leaflet, and room space. Seoul lacks land due to its high population density. Therefore, there are many street stalls on the city streets and advertising leaflets and posted everywhere to increase competitiveness among many stores. In addition, there are conceptual room spaces which are used by entertainment spaces. It experiences the appearance of Seoul in the past due to street stalls, leaflets, and room space that originated from traditional Hanok. The previously prepared photos of Seoul are made in patterns reminiscent of Seoul's image through mapping. These are my three messes. First of all, the first mess reminds me of a layer of leaflets. Each side has its own angle and shape that curves inward, which naturally creates empty spaces. The pattern of the first mess is remind of a newspaper, which was intended to express the paper material of leaflets. The second mess has an irregular buildup of curved shapes similar to roof tile. The curved shape naturally creates spaces on the first floor, remind of Seoul's streets, and allows for simple installation spaces such as street stalls to be built on the road. The third mess has a shape that comes out and goes in all directions. This suggests a lot of room space for the interior space. Messes are placed on the floors to make three front rows, which provide pedestrians with the experience of entering alleys in Seoul. This is my main mess model. The layered shape creates windows and outside spaces with various directions due to the shape with each volume. The inward curved shape also creates an indirectly separated spaces, which is used as a room for different purpose. Thank you.
Called postmodernism, high tech, or futuristic, and new interpretations of traditional architecture. I put together this data set using these keywords. And then the next portion of my data set is curated based on my initial perception of Seoul. Since this is my first time visiting, I noticed how fast-paced and efficient it is here, along with very populated and crowded. For those reasons, I utilize these keywords. This is a style transfer image with the original image from the data set, and then the style transfer image. These are my 5 massing models with the style transfer image skins. And then this is the process of the image search analyzing. And then this is my final render, and I wanted to create something that contrasts the curvature of the GDP while also still remaining abstract and not necessarily blending in with the cosmopolitan architecture.
Hello, I'm Sangtae Kim of Unit3. Each country has its own unique urban landscape, but generally, there are not many opportunities to see a panoramic view of city at a look. I would like to show the view of Seoul through the inside and outside of building and present a new skyline. My concept is entropy and negentropy. I saw the whole view of Seoul as a coexistence of entropy and negentropy. The view of Seoul is an entropy concept, and it's a modern building with its heights and various colors. The view of Hanok is a negentropy concept, assumed to be a static, usually similar shaped Hanok. So I got a data set with the following keywords: view of Seoul, Hanok, OMA, and so on. And based on this data set, I searched for images and analyzed the mass. The result of this process is these pictures. The following models are the result of texture mapping and are the result of completing additional work. The image below is a reanalyzed photo of my completed models. I choose the second model among these 3 alternatives. So I divided entropy and negentropy through image searches and constructed 2 types of mass. Each mass was continuously overlapped to emphasize each characteristic. The entropy mass was placed at the bottom to induce free and diverse activities, and the negentropy mass was placed at the top so that it could be quiet and thoughtful. Finally, a new skyline is presented with the beauty of Hanok tiled loops, not the loops of general buildings. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Jin. I'm going to present about building library. When I explored the site, I saw many shopping malls and busy people.
I'm interested that the reflected on the glass of buildings were showing its characteristic in Seoul. So I thought high buildings, shopping malls, and busy people are the components that make Seoul. There are images I searched on Google. I wanted a huge, quiet, and comfortable space where it could hold the complexity of Seoul. Because I thought that a quiet building could absorb complexity and feel familiarity as it showed the appearance of Seoul. These images show compare source image to style transfer. Then I made 3 models. The first model expresses Seoul, where buildings are woven and united. The second model has a natural curve, such as a smooth flow, in contrast to its complexities. And the last model is a familiar representation of Seoul and is covered with buildings and bookshelves. In conclusion, I selected the last model because it expresses Seoul well and is proper for library with building and bookshelves together. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Park Jong from Unit3, and I'll begin my presentation. To begin with, if you see the picture on the right side, many people will feel familiar with it because this kind of facade is quite familiar, quite common in Seoul, especially the commercial buildings that were built during 1970s and 80s. And I thought the reason why people feel familiar about these kind of facade is because they have grids. So I started to search grids of buildings in Seoul. At the site visit of our project, I saw many building facades and signages that have grids. Also, in Seoul, there are many commercial buildings that have grids. And apartments, especially the old ones, have grids as well. So I thought this grid of building facades in Seoul could also be the identity of Seoul, and selected grid as the concept of my project. Then I started to gather images of building facade in Seoul by using image scraper, which is the Python code that enables to scrap images related to the keyword that I typed. So my keywords were Seoul apartment, Seoul building facade, and Seoul visit images, site visit images. After that, I gather images of well-known architects to use their design styles as reference when doing my massing design. And with the aid of these images, I came up with three mass designs, which is Mass Art 1, Mass Art 2, Mass Art 3. Especially, we've used AI-based scripting, which enable us to get reference images real time. So whenever I fix the form or texture of geometry, the AI recommends other reference images that are similar to what I'm designing right now. So the pictures you can see on the bottom are the reference images that AI recommends every time I fix my geometry or change the texture of my geometry. And these are, each of these pictures are the images of Model Art 1, and this is Model Art 2, and the last one is Model Art 3. And after that, we've done style transfer, which aggregate the image of mass design that I showed before, and other input image that you can see on the top, and make a new image. And those style transfer images are used as textures to map the mass design that I just showed. So the bottom pictures you can see are the style transfer images that was based on Mass Art 1. And these are images based on Mass Art 2. And these are the images based on Mass Art 3. And at last, the final render images, and these are the final render images of mass designs. And the texture that were used on this mass design were based on the style transfer images that I just showed. So this is the mass design with texture of style transfer image mapped on it. And this is the reference of the images that were used on this presentation. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Okay.
So I actually have two fundamental questions. So the first one is what's the generative massing the process? It seems like so the Unity has a function to display some reference image and then students just play with some of the polygon modeling, or is there some other like some method? So this is my first question. And then the second question is, like, what's the reason you utilize the style transfer for the texture? I know I couldn't find some relation and the connection between the style transfer, the texture, and then why it needs to be on the texture or like applied to the texture.
Do I? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of
You wanna
something. Yeah, just another question. Or it's really.
Yeah, you guys need to participate in this conversation. And
Then to first talk about my personal thought, the reason like why we use these kind of like AI generated reference images is that normally when we start to do math design, like we don't start from the scratch, like we don't just open the Rhino and start to like the box before we search for the reference images, whether it's from like Pinterest or these days on Instagram. But I think the good thing is because about this is that even though you model a box on the Rhino, they give reference images related to that, and from there you can get inspiration and start to move on. And and I also believe that this kind of help can also reduce the modeling time. And sometimes, even though like we see the reference images from the internet, I think it's based on our intention. So even though what we are thinking of as our reference and what I'm really modeling can be different, but the AI gives recommendation based on the similarity, which is kind of objective. So I guess when I get help from AI when I design, I think I can get track on I can not deviate from the original design what I was doing. So I think that is my first answer. But maybe I think others can think differently.
That's because like when all the students present their the project, they don't talk about what's their design decision when they just extrude some boxes or why is the boxes that in this way. They just boom. So I'm just wondering what's the process they modeling, because I think that's the most important part of the project, but they generally need some is the key part I feel like.
yeah, I feel because this is actually a mental exercise. There's no high tech here. You are the person doing the models, but so we spend 2 days to do just image search to study for idea inspirations. And during this process, you are ready to start to inform the concept of the goal you want to achieve. So when you start to model something, you have a specific goal or concept you want to try to do. So and in that case, you can, and with the help on an image search, AI image search, you can see what kind of possibility those kind of building can be. So maybe you can model sample detail from there by purely just model. You don't need wait for the machine to run. You just model by yourself. So kind of this is kind of like using your hand to do a sketch, but now with sketching computer. So to really fast to get options, this is like the tools I'm thinking used for competition. We get 100 iterations a night, and then we pick the one to fit most. We pick the best one to move forward, and then. But now we don't have a mess now. But for next is when the program come in, when the some kind of condition come in, you have more constraint. You start to shape these buildings, but the concept is still there. So it's not just because if you start from a program, it's all box, and you start to calculate. But if you start from the basic model and with a concept with no scale, then at least you have different value relationship in the basic model. So now each model is represent specific concept based on the observation of the city and the styles.
Patrick, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Congratulations for the fascinating models. It really it seems like a lot of fun to play around with this software. But I was wondering, why did you choose this former military site to implement the models? And because there doesn't seem to be really a connection between the models that are implemented on the plot and the site. So why, if you choose, if I'm not mistaken, if you choose this site, why not also implementing it in this whole process?
So that process will be implemented in the second phase. So the first phase is basically because to be honest, the site doesn't matter in the first phase, and also I'm still thinking about the competition. No matter what kind of site we have, we still design the style we like. Like Zaha Hadid, they have their style of doing competition, and Fujimoto has his own style to do competition. So so their style come first, and they adjust the style, adjust their buildings to fit into the site constraint, or they introduce another layer of cultural factor to slightly change their design. But the initial move for their design is highly tied to their preference in terms of style and spatial organizations.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm quite interested in you guys deal with the architecture as a texture, right? But normally, conventional architects do we deal with the architecture as a space, and sometimes we deal with the code or language. Your approach is a bit different, but a bit worried about that at the end, and I know it is the initial stage, right? So it feels like it's just a wrapping box, you know. So yeah, how do you deal with or fine tune whether the texture or surface into the specific design or like the cultural boundary things, or maybe function, extract it. So do you guys have any strategy for this? So you also deal with machine learning?
So next step will based on a student's concept. And so some of the project are just the texture making a box. And some project are like this one is already has a detail on it. And so the texture for the more like boxy kind of geometry will use to be a map to divide the surface. And then so to subdivide the surface based on the texture color. And then we use the texture color as a base point to deploy component or to like penalize the facade and based on those texture color. And the reason why I the reason why I use the texture as a main tool is because I try to find the emotional connection to the color, to the pattern, because if you just like for example, like you see Venice from the satellite, you see the specific color patterns, and then once it been style transferred, you still can or resemble, you still can see. If someone tell you this is the image of Venice, you still can feel the sense of Venice because of the color, texture, and pattern. So I just try to experiment what if we use this as a tool to start to transfer the color of a city. Can we still recognize that city like that? I say you use the soju bottle and you start transfer it, but can you, if someone tell you, can you get the sense of can you have an emotional connection with those images? or if you enter the space is like covered by rose color, and then can you like have a kind of deja vu feeling about you have been here before because of this kind of special effect. But I'm not sure how much it can be achieved. Just initial thinking is try to use this to achieve those kind of perception in the space.
That's why another questions arose. You deal with the psychological feedback at the end, right?
Yeah.
So when you deal with the image from your
demining whatever it is, and then but Johnny deal with the soju bar, and he suggests some image, but from me, I'm not sure about that is related to the actual soju kind of texture thing. So I mean, you have to more focus on the how the I say quality of outcome, right? So you have to control that thing. So if you do that point, it will be convincing, right? But at the moment, I know that your stops, right? So but it very tough, and it's quite a lot of things. So yep, it's quite promising, but I'm not quite sure at the moment. That's my comment.
In terms of the detailing, make it more beautiful or make it less regressive, or what do you think?
It's not about buildable. It's more like a convincing. It's like
When you mention about cultural texture or cultural thing, I have to feels like, oh yeah, that is come from somewhere in the soul. I feel like that, right? But using the image, you use the final, you're wrapping things. I'm not really that first that moment, right? That means that's why I say quality of outcomes, right? You have to control it. I don't know how you take the process, but there's another interesting point anyway, right? Okay.
I also like to agree with the Desmond's perspective. That is, so that's my actually the extension of the second question. So what's the reason you use the style transfer as an action? It's just I feel like it's just kind of like randomize things. That means you don't need to use some the advanced technology. Just choose some whatever pattern you like, and then just apply it to a texture. So I just wonder what's the difference between that things. So that's because I feel like style. I think you just use the pre-trained model of the style transform, like the VGG or the less than natural. So in a more technical detail, so VGG or the resonance just trained by some the general the data, for example, like animal or the car or plane to recognize or detect some sort of daily object. But so when you use the style transfer, it just recognizes some very general over the features in the image, and then just finds some corresponding the features into those just inject that the general the features in the target image. So I'm not sure so for example if you fine tune the style transfer model based on some of the architectures and the target data set. So it could have some of the meaning some of the facade target texture or some of the soul, some certain the history culture or some of the neon light, some of the texture. So I think it could be some of the parts you might think about as of some the use of these technologies just rather than just wrapping box.
Yeah, like I said, this is not a high-tech tools. It's a mental trick. So actually, I don't really care about texture. And you can use any kind of model here. You can use style transfer, style gain, cycle gain, piece to pix, whatever. But the main purpose is how much your modern process be influenced by the image you see. And then style transfer, style gain, for sure, we can train whatever we want with a specific goal. But that doesn't influence how this work, how we get messy model right now, but might could have benefit for next step, because like you say, maybe you can have a specific goal in terms of how to transfer the pattern to the model. And you're right, now is the general pre-trained VGG16 to just really quick to get an idea, to get a texture on top. But yes, the texture right now is not really affecting the overall geometry right now. Yes.
I'm kind of wondering, like I'm certainly thinking about the difference between almost like architecture and sculpture, because one's, I think, still a more direct representation of something, and I think architecture is maybe more metaphorical. I mean, I probably couldn't even generalize that, but what I'm trying to say is that maybe texture mapping is a way to kind of add that additional layer. But it's just like so many things are going through my head. I can't actually formulate it properly. But that's the general kind of sentiment that I have.
I think all the comments are really good for like to continue to. All the comments are really good for like continue to refine these tools and then to find more like real purpose of how we use these tools. And then yes, that's a final thought.